How do you deal with failure? We've all experienced it, some more than others. At some point in our lives, something will go wrong. We'll get set back, lose a job, a girlfriend, possibly a kidney. But how do you deal with that moving forward? Do you wallow, cry, give up? While there's certainly some folks out there that believe you need to sit down with your counselor every time they run out of hazelnut syrup at Starbucks, I am not among them. Welcome back, everybody. As I'm sure you all know by now, IK has delivered on her promise, putting her just one Vic away from hitting double digits, a milestone for any profession or hobby. And I can't help but wonder what kind of cake she's gonna go with for the office party. I don't know why, but I feel like a red velvet is just appropriate. And as I'm sure one or two of you are going to point out in the comments if you aren't already doing so, my last theory on who was next missed the mark pretty hard. I was wrong. I can admit it, but what can I say? No one bats 100. So once again, how do you deal with failure? Because for me, when beholden with the rare situation of being wrong, my gut reaction isn't to panic or get upset. I don't run screaming to my computer as I watch followers abandon the channel. No, I sit down, I have a nice 15-year-old single malt, and I figure out what went wrong where. So with that in mind, as always, I'm Ben Robinson, and here's what we know. The clue last week was a set of cookie cutters shaped like men, which I took for meaning a chronic reposter was sure to fall at IK's hands. And all things considered, I wouldn't be surprised if that was on her docket for later. Anyway, that was the clue, that was my guess, and unfortunately for the latest victim, ginger-haired vegan baker Forrest Rumian, I was wrong. I just wasn't expecting her to be quite so literal, with a red gingerbread man maker being the clue for a gingerbread baker. There's usually a nuance to her work, but I guess the curveball is just part of her charm. I've moved past it, so will you, and now let's dive into the tale of the gingerbread man. Forrest Rumian was running a channel on YouTube dedicated to the evils of gluten, never missing an opportunity to damn us wheat bellies and our unhealthy, disgusting lifestyles. In addition to being loud, obnoxious, and gluten-free, as I said before, he was also a vegan. And no, I'm not going to start damning vegans for their dietary choices and their unfounded love of kale. You can dress it up however you want, a leaf is a leaf, it's never going to be as good as a crispy strip of bacon. Anyway, Forrest was one of those crusading vegans intent on using every opportunity, fact, bullshit tidbit, and moral superiority complex to cram it down your throat and raise himself a little higher by stomping on your meat-stabbing canines. In addition, he also went after other chefs, condemning their shows, flagging them for animal cruelty, and on top of that, he used to call in health inspectors and elite Yelpers with the sole intention of trying to get them shut down, unless you were willing to make a few alterations to your menu and donate to his Patreon account. That's right, the Jolly Ginger Giant was running an extortion ring. A vegan, gluten-free extortion ring. It really is a brave new world, which came tumbling down once IK got her hands on it. Now this kill is different than the rest because IK has stepped outside her norm of killing people under 160 pounds. Mr. Rumian was definitely over that, but maybe he wasn't particularly strong, caused by, I'm just putting it out there, perhaps a lack of protein in the diet. Whereas IK has been putting in the time, she's been eating her Wheaties for breakfast, and now she's moving on to bigger prey. Now last week I mentioned that maybe IK would take it easy and just cut some brake lines on a car, and I'll be the first to admit that method of murder could not have been further off the mark. Mr. Rumian was found late last night having been flayed alive and missing well over 80% of his skin, which had been removed with, can you guess? Cookie cutters. And yes, it was the cause of death. So, how much skin do you need to lose before bleeding out? Well, it turns out the answer is 110 gingerbread men, 55 hearts, and 2 dozen snowflakes. Now, unlike previous IK crime scenes, this one had some signs of disturbance. And Mr. Rumian himself had ligature marks around his neck, which don't appear to have been fatal, but definitely capable of knocking him out. And that alone provides a very interesting clue because it's not that easy to strangle somebody. Not impossible to be sure, but it requires a certain level of confidence which you don't just wake up one morning possessing. If you're getting that up close and personal with somebody, you know how to handle yourself, and more importantly, the other guy. Which is making me think IK has some experience in the self-defense arena, and not in the fancy crap that looks pretty and is largely useless, something practical. Krav Maga, MMA, something being actively used by professionals. And in case a certain Sergeant Barteski is listening, don't worry, that one's on me. As always, IK has done her best to create another nightmare for the police. As I'm sure right now there's some poor assistant down in the morgue doing his best to match up which piece went where, like a giant fleshy memory game. But what could this mean for IK's next kill? Because next up is number 10, So maybe this was a practice run. Maybe she's planning something big for the anniversary. Maybe she's at home right now, polishing her good knives, ironing her best black hoodie, and weatherproofing a crisp new pair of leather Hitman gloves. We're finding out one way or another. That's it, guys. Good night.